Good day everyone. Today I will introduce about neorealism. Neorealism, also known as structural realism, is a theory in international relations developed by Kenneth Waltz in 1979. It explains how countries behave in the global system. The main idea of neorealism is that the international system is anarchy, meaning there is no central authority or world government to control states. Because of this, each country must rely on itself to stay safe. In the system, countries are mainly focused on survival and security. They build military strength and economic power to protect themselves from threats. Neorealism also argues that the behavior of states is shaped more by the structure of international system than by human nature or the type of government a country has. Whether a country is democratic or authoritarian, all states are pushed to compete for power. In conclusion, neorealism helps explain why conflict and power competitions are common in world politics, even when countries do not necessarily want war.
There are three main factors of neorealism. First is the ordering principle. An ordering principle determines the arrangement of the parts of the system. According to the neorealist framework established by Kenneth Waltz, anarchy is the primary ordering principle of the international system. Hellal in 2019 stated that anarchy can be defined as the lack of an agent with system-wide authority. According to Chakraborty, in this context, international politics is characterized by anarchy, meaning there is no central international authority governing state behavior within a decentralized global system. The absence of a central authority that monopolizes the global lawmaking and law enforcement processes means that the international legal order is depicted as a decentralized, horizontal, and anarchic system. This condition forces states into a self-help system where survival is the highest priority. Our second point is character of the units. Walt's neorealist theory outlined that the international system structure is the principal cause of state behavior. The main goal of all states is to increase their power through self-defense and military development. States have their own police forces, militaries, courts, and other administrations. While without an established hierarchy, all units are equal to each other. Therefore, Chakraborty believed that states ultimately only rely upon themselves, which is self-help, where all states must perform the same basic functions to survive. The self-help system leads to a security dilemma, where a state's attempt to intensify its security or safety are perceived as threats by other states. This will prompt others to also increase their security measures, which often results in an arms race or escalating tensions, even if none of the states involved originally intended to provoke conflict. Moreover, it is also assumed that its driving force to enhance survival is to maintain and attain power over other states, because there is no central protector. The lack of trust existing amongst countries, the constraining and disposing force of anarchic structure, compels states to behave competitively and selfishly to ensure their own security, according to Keke. For the last points, we will look into the distribution of capabilities of the units. The concept of power in neorealism remains abstract and difficult to measure, where it includes not only military strength but also economic and social factors. According to Waltz in 1986, power can be understood as a unit of account that allows states to compare their positions in the international system. The origins of war in neorealist theory explain how the concentration of power is the main cause of war. Power may be classified as unipolar, bipolar, or multipolar. A unipolar system is characterized by the dominance of a particularly powerful state, or the hegemon, while a bipolar system consists of two major powers, as seen during the Cold War. In contrast, a multipolar system involves more than two powerful states sharing influence. This classification helps explain how the distribution of power shapes state behavior, pattern of cooperation or conflict, and the overall stability of the international system. To illustrate, Kenneth Waltz in 1979 stated that the possession of great power as a hegemon can tempt states to use force unnecessarily. Unipolarity creates a palpable threat to other states, encouraging them to form alliances in order to balance against the dominant power. However, Watts viewed bipolar power relations as fundamentally clear and comprehensible. The clear distribution of power between two dominant states contributes to greater stability and reduces the likelihood of war, where the Cold War is often cited as an example of bipolar stability. Besides, multipolar systems are considered more problematic because states face uncertainty regarding the capabilities and intentions of multiple actors. Alliances in such systems are often unstable and constantly shifting, increasing the risk of miscalculation and conflict. Therefore, Neorealism argues that as long as there is an absence of a central government, the number of great powers, the concentration of power among them, and overall power in the system is always in irregularity.
Analysis on Neorealism, which known as structural realism, focusing on how the international system shapes the behavior of states. Unlike classical realism, which emphasizes more human nature and leaders' ambitions, Neorealism argues that the structure of the international itself is the main factor influencing the state action. So, there are a few key components of neo-realist theory that I will present. First key is anarchy. In the international system, there is no higher authority or central government that can fully take control on the behavior of states. Unlike within a country where laws are enforced by the government, international system operates on condition where states must manage their own security and survival. Because of this anarchist system, international practice and rules impose very few direct constraints on state behavior. This is because of there is almost no effective way for them to fully enforce those rules in sovereign states. As a result, states must tend to prioritize their own national interests and security since they cannot completely depend on other countries or other international organizations for protection. Next is security dilemma. The main goal of states is to maximize their own security and ensure survival. However, when one state increasing their military power for defense, other states may saw it as a threat. This makes them respond by also increasing their military strength, where it creates a cycle of suspicion and competition. For example, during the Cold War, when the United States expanded their military capabilities, the Soviet Union responded in the same way, even though both sides claimed it was for defense. It actually increased tension between them. So, the security dilemma actually shows that efforts by a state to become more secure can unintentionally make it less secure because of it triggers reaction from the other states. The third key is balance of power. In Neorealism, states maintain their security by balancing or matching their power with other states. This is done to prevent any single country from becoming too dominant in the international system. When one state becomes too powerful, the other states will respond by forming alliances or increasing their own capabilities to restore the balance. This helps to maintain the sustainability and the stability in the system to reduce the risk of domination. For example, before and after the World Wars, the global power structure changed significantly. Especially we can see after the World War II, where the power has been distributed more fairly, especially with the rise of the United States and the Soviet Union as a major of superpowers. The shift created a bipolar world order during the Cold War. So, the balance of power explain how the states try to protect themselves by preventing any one country from controlling the international system. Next is a rational actor assumption. Neorealism views states as a rational actor where they make the decision based on logic rather than emotion. States are expected to evaluate costs and benefits before taking any action, especially when it's involving the security and the survival state. This makes the theory more structured and easier for them to analyze for compact the unclear and ungrounded theory. For example, the state may choose to form alliances or increasing their spending on defense only if it believes that the actions will improve its security position. The Neorealism assumes that states actually behave on the order to maximize their security and long-term interest in the international system. Last but not least, the key for Neorealist theory is the structure of international system. In Neorealism, the structure of the international system is considered the main factors that shape the state behavior. Instead of focusing on human nature, Neorealism argues that states' behavior is mainly influenced by the structure they are operating in, especially the condition of anarchy and the distribution of power. Because of this structure, states often behave in the similar ways, such as prioritizing the security and power. In some cases, they can act in ways that influence or slightly change the structure of the international system, where they lead to a different patterns on behavior in the future. Overall, the Neorealism highlights that it is the international system itself rather than human nature alone that plays the biggest role in shaping how states act.
Hello, Assalamualaikum. My name is Sharmila. So we continue on impact on international relations. Positive one. Number one, balance of power and stability. Neorealism help countries maintain stability by balancing power and preventing one state from becoming too dominant. So this is mean as defined by neorealism. Nation will attempt to maintain a balance of power to keep one state from taking over of the global order in order to preserve internationality stability. This can promote alliance, military cooperation, and strategic collaboration among governments because they are aware of the potential repercussions from other powerful states. Nations become more circumspect before initiating hostilities as a result of this balance of power. Neorealism helped reduce the risk of dominations and support a more stable international environment. So we go on to number two, rational and strategic decisions. The theory encouraged governments to make logical decisions to protect national interests and security. For this point, logical entities that put national security and interest first, this push government to truly weigh the advantages, risks, and threats before deciding on foreign policy. Neorealism aids nation in defense plan and diplomatic initiative by emphasizing reason and national survival. This strategy can safeguard national interests in international interactions, bolster sovereignty, and protect citizens. So we continue for number three, better understanding of international politics. Neorealism explain how the international system and anarchy influence state behavior and global conflicts, which is by emphasizing the structure of the international system and the idea of anarchy. Neorealism offers academic and decision makers methodical approach to study international affairs. It explains the persistence of rivalry, coalitions, and dispute between states. Additionally, it's enabled them to investigate international relations with greater objectivity. As a result, neorealism has grown to be a crucial framework for comprehending world politics and creating new theories of international relations. So we carry on negative impact. Number one, ignores domestic politics and human factor. Neorealism focus too much on the international system and ignore factors such as leadership, culture, and domestic politics. So one of major criticism of neorealism is that it's focused too much on the international system and the distribution of power between states while neglecting internal factor within countries. Critics argue that elements such as leaderships, ideology, culture, and domestic politics also strongly influence state behavior and foreign policy decisions. Therefore, neorealism may not fully explain international conflict and political action because it overlooked the importance of human domestic factor. So we go to number two, oversimplifies international relations. The theory focuses mainly on power and anarchy, making it unable to fully explain the complexity of global politics. People argue that by emphasizing anarchy and division of power among states, neorealism oversimplify the international system. Important components like economic relations, technological advancements, demographic shift, and the involvement of non-state players are frequently left out of the theory. Neorealism may therefore be unable to adequately convey the complexity of contemporary global interconnections and real-world international politics. And last, for negative impact is cannot fully explain changes in international politics. Neorealism struggle to explain changes influenced by ideas, cooperations, and social developments between states. This means that neorealism propensity to view world politics are monotonous and unchanging is another flaw. Opponents contend that the theory find it difficult to account for significant shift in the international system, particularly shift impacted by concept, norms, identities, and state cooperations. Although state conduct can change over time owing to social and political development, constructivist research contend that neorealism implies all government behave similar under anarchy. So that's all. We will continue for the next presenter.
Overall, this slide presents the comparisons between the advantages and disadvantages of neorealism across different aspects such as focus, power and security, role of states, power distribution, and practical application. It shows that while neorealism is effective in explaining power politics and state behavior, it also has limitations in addressing cooperation, non-state actors, and modern global challenges. The first aspect is focus. One advantage of neorealism is that it emphasizes system-level forces. This means the theory looks at how the international system, especially the absence of the world government, affects state behavior. It also highlights that states are strongly influenced by external pressures from other countries. However, the disadvantage is that neorealism tends to ignore international relations beyond states. It gives limited attention to non-state actors such as NGOs, multinational corporations, and internal organizations. Because of this, the theory may not fully explain modern global interaction. The second aspect is power and security. Neorealism argues that survival, power, and security are the main goals of every state. States compete to protect themselves in an anarchic international system. The theory also explains arms races and the balance of power clearly because countries try to prevent rivals from becoming too strong. On the negative side, neorealism can be overly focused on conflict. It often views world politics as a constant struggle for power and security. As a result, it underestimates the importance of cooperation, diplomacy, and peaceful relationships between states. The third aspect is the role of states. Neorealism strongly focuses on states as the main actors in international politics. This provides a clear explanation of state-centered decision-making because governments are seen as rational actors trying to protect national interests. However, this perspective neglects the role of international organizations, NGOs, and multinational corporations. It also oversimplifies global politics because today's international system involves many different actors, not only states. So the next aspect is power distribution. An advantage of neorealism is that it is useful for understanding shifts in global power. For example, it can explain changes in influence between major powers and how states react to rising or declining powers. The disadvantage is that the theory overemphasizes material power such as military strength and economic capability. It often overlooks non-material factors like culture, ideology, leadership, and soft power, which also influence international relations. The last aspect is practical application. Neorealism is very useful for understanding wars, alliances, and security strategies. Many policymakers use realist ideas when analyzing military competition and national defense. On the other side, neorealism is less effective in explaining contemporary global issues such as international cooperation, climate change, pandemics, and humanitarian crises. These problems require collaboration between many actors, not just competition between states.
In conclusion, neorealism is an important theory in international relations that explains state behavior through the structure of the international system rather than human nature of domestic politics. Neorealism argues that because there is no central authority above state, countries must rely on their own capabilities to ensure survival and security. As a result, states tend to compete for power, strengthen military capabilities, and form alliances to maintain balance and stability in the international system. Overall, neorealism provides a useful framework for understanding global politics, especially issues related to war, security, alliance, and power competition. The theory contributes positively by helping explain balance of power and rational decision-making among states. However, it is also criticized for overlooking domestic politics, leadership, ideology, and the role of non-state actors in shaping international relations. Despite this limitation, neorealism remains one of the most influential and widely used theory in the study of international relations because it offers a systematic explanation of how states behave in an anarchy world. This is our reference QR code. Thank you. That's all from our group.